The Accidental Nudist. Chapter 1. The Fortress of Solitude. John wasn't the kind of guy you'd notice. He was a creature of habit, a silent observer, and a pro at blending in. His life was a fortress of solitude, built with thick, emotional walls to protect him from the scary unpredictability of other people. He was a programmer, which was perfect. He could spend all day talking to the cool, logical language of code. But one Tuesday morning, that fortress took a direct hit. It all started with a plumbing emergency downstairs, which, of course, John knew nothing about. He was in the shower, his one true happy place, when the water suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was unnerving. A cold dread seeped into his bones. He was going to have to talk to someone. He wrapped a towel around his waist and crept to the front door, peering through the peephole. A plumber's van was parked outside. He cracked the door open and called out, "Hello?" "Water's off for a bit, mate. Burst pipe," yelled a voice from downstairs. John's heart sank. He had a deadline. He couldn't wait. In a split-second decision that would change everything, he decided to do the one thing he could do: escape to his other safe space, the gym. He rushed out, gym bag in hand, but in his haste, he forgot a crucial detail. He forgot to lock his front door. Chapter 2. The Naked Man and the Plumber. The gym was another carefully chosen bubble of unspoken rules. Everyone was there to work out. No need for small talk. He could be invisible. After his workout, John headed to the locker room, a silent cog in a well-oiled machine. He went to his usual private shower in the corner and, sighing with relief, stepped under the warm spray. That's when he heard a voice. "Hey, mate, you won't believe the morning I've had." John froze. It was Mark, his downstairs neighbor, and Mark was looking right at him. John's mind went blank. He was naked. Completely, utterly naked, and he was standing in front of another man. His first instinct was to run, to hide, to disappear, but he was frozen to the spot. Mark, bless his heart, didn't seem to notice John's distress at all. He was too busy recounting his plumbing woes. "The whole ceiling's come down. Water everywhere. It's a disaster." John just stood there, his heart pounding, a fiery blush creeping up his neck. He wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. Finally, Mark paused, looked at John properly, and for the first time, seemed to notice his complete nudity. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, but he quickly masked it with a friendly grin. "Anyway, mate, I'm off to get a coffee. Want one?" John, still speechless, shook his head. "Suit yourself," Mark said, and left. Alone again, John felt as though he had been stripped bare, not just of his clothes, but of his carefully built identity. He was no longer John the programmer, John the recluse. He was John the naked man. He went home, still in a daze, only to find his front door ajar. He pushed it open, hard in his throat. Nothing was missing. His laptop was there, his wallet was there. Then he remembered. He hadn't locked the door. He was exposed, in every sense of the word. He felt himself drowning in a sea of shame. Chapter 3. The First Step. Overwhelmed, John did what he always did. He went online. He typed "accidentally naked" in front of someone into the search bar. The results were a mix of funny anecdotes and advice columns, but one link caught his eye: a forum for nudists. He clicked on it, half expecting something strange. Instead, he found a community of people who were comfortable in their own skin, who saw the human body as something natural and beautiful, not something to be hidden. As he read, the shame began to fade, replaced by a flicker of curiosity. It was a world away from his own, a world of confidence and self-acceptance. A seed had been planted. John started small. He began working from home with his shirt off. It felt weird at first, but soon it felt normal. A few days later, he was on a video call, wearing a shirt for the camera but only his briefs underneath the desk. A thrill of defiance shot through him. He was breaking his own rules, and it felt good. The more he experimented, the more he wanted to push the boundaries. He started fantasizing about what it would be like to be completely naked out in the world. He decided to test the waters with a walk in the park. He found a secluded spot, his heart pounding. He took off his shirt. The sun on his bare chest felt incredible. For the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. Chapter 4. The Social Experiment. But John's journey wasn't over. The rising cost of living meant he needed a roommate. The old John would have panicked. The new John saw an opportunity. A test subject. That's how Leo moved in. Leo was John's total opposite, an art student with paint splatters on his clothes and an aura of chaotic calm. For John, it was like a wild, unpredictable variable had been introduced into his carefully written program. He called it Project Roommate. His first test was simple. On a Saturday morning, he forgot to put a shirt on after his shower and walked into the kitchen. He felt his heart drumming. Leo was at the table, sketching. "Morning," John mumbled, eyes fixed on the coffee maker. "Hey man," Leo replied, not looking up. "Is there any of that almond milk left?" And that was it. No gasp, no double take. To Leo, a shirtless roommate was as unremarkable as a chair. John felt a wave of relief. Data point 1. Shirtlessness is a non-event. He slowly escalated, walking around in just his briefs. Leo didn't even notice. The apartment was becoming a laboratory for his social experiments. The final test came unexpectedly. John was walking to the bathroom with his towel when Leo burst out of his room, excited about a new canvas. Startled, John fumbled, and his towel slipped, pooling at his feet. He stood there, frozen, completely nude, a perfect recreation of the locker room incident. Leo's eyes widened, but not at John. They were fixed on the wall behind him. "That's it!" he exclaimed. "The way the light from the bathroom hits that wall. That's the exact lighting I need for my piece." He patted John's arm and hurried back to his room, shouting, "Don't move that lamp!" John stood there, naked and utterly invisible. His nudity hadn't registered as anything more than a mobile piece of furniture. The feeling wasn't shame, it was power. Chapter 5. Overwriting the Past. Armed with this newfound confidence, John felt ready to return to the scene of his original humiliation, the gym locker room. His goal was simple: overwrite the old memory with a new one. His target, fittingly, was Mark. He timed his workout to coincide with Mark's schedule. After his shower, he didn't immediately wrap the towel around his waist. Instead, he slung it over his shoulder, acting with purpose. He was completely nude. Mark was a few lockers down. "Having trouble?" John asked, his voice surprisingly steady. "This stupid thing," Mark grunted, wrestling with his lock. "The plumber found a whole family of, well, you don't want to know what he found in the pipes." They chatted for 5 minutes. John, standing there naked as the day he was born, just listened and nodded. He wasn't the naked man being stared at. He was just a guy, having a conversation, who happened to be naked. Mark didn't care. Data point 2. Nudity in a context-appropriate setting is socially invisible. The next level was the sauna. John had always been too intimidated to go in. That day, he saw Mark head inside. Taking a deep breath, John followed. After a few minutes of sitting with their towels on, one of the older men stood up and left without his towel. It was a sign. Slowly, deliberately, John unwrapped his towel and laid it flat on the bench beneath him. He was completely bare in the sweltering heat. Nothing happened. The world didn't end. The heat on his skin felt intense, a purifying fire. He felt the last vestiges of his shame burn away, turning to ash. He was just another man in a hot room. He was equal. He was free. When Mark finally stirred to leave, he glanced at John and grinned. "You're right, mate. It's way too hot in here to be wrapped up." He unwound his own towel and walked out. John sat there alone, a slow smile spreading across his face. He had not only faced his fear, he had reverse-engineered it and proven it to be an illogical phantom. The testing phase was complete. He was ready to compile the final program. Chapter 6. Finding a Tribe. John had reached a new level of comfort, but he felt the pull of the community he had only read about. He started participating in the online forums, sharing a heavily abridged version of his story. One evening, a private message appeared in his inbox. It was from a user named Ethan H. "Hi, I read your post," the message began. "How did you do it? I can't even take my shirt off at the beach. I feel like everyone is staring, judging. I just want to feel normal. Any advice?" Every word resonated with the man John used to be. The old John would have deleted the message, terrified of the responsibility. The new John felt a surge of empathy. He saw a reflection of his former self, trapped behind a wall of fear, and he knew he had to help him tear it down. They agreed to meet for coffee. Ethan was younger, maybe in his 20s, with a student's slouch and eyes that seemed permanently fixed on the floor. He radiated an energy of apology, as if he were sorry for taking up space. "I used to think my body was a problem to be hidden," John confessed. "But here's the thing. Nobody is looking as closely as you think they are. They're all the main characters in their own movie. You're just a background extra." He gave Ethan a simple first assignment: spend an evening in his room with his shirt off, not to judge his body, but just to get used to the feeling of air on his skin. Over the next few weeks, Ethan messaged back and forth, building his own dataset, and the results were encouraging. The next step had to be in the real world. A public beach was too much. So, John took Ethan on a hike to a secluded, isolated lake. When they arrived, the lake was deserted. John, with the practiced ease he now possessed, stripped off his clothes and waded into the water. "Wow, it's perfect," he called back. Ethan stood frozen on the shore, a towel clutched like a shield. "What if someone comes?" Ethan's voice was tight. "Then they'll see two guys swimming in a lake," John called back calmly. "Ethan, the fear is always loudest, right before you do the thing. I promise you, on the other side of that fear island, this." He gestured to the water and the peaceful clearing. There was a long pause. Then, with a sudden, jerky movement, Ethan dropped his towel. He shed his clothes in a clumsy rush and practically ran into the water. The cold shock made him gasp, but then, a laugh. A real, unforced laugh of surprise and relief. For the first time, Ethan smiled back at John, a wide, genuine smile. Chapter 7: The Final Threshold. A month later, John and Ethan drove to a small, private nudist club. It wasn't a beach, but a quiet property with a pool and a volleyball court. In the car, Ethan was a bundle of nerves again. "This is different. They'll, compare." "No, they won't," John said with certainty. "That's a clothed world idea. You're about to see the most diverse collection of bodies you've ever seen. You'll realize none of them are perfect, and all of them are fine. That's the whole point." After checking in, they headed to the men's changing room. This was the final threshold. John changed quickly, but Ethan was slow, his hands trembling slightly. John simply waited. "Ready?" he asked. Ethan took a deep, shuddering breath and nodded. He closed his locker, the metallic click echoing like a starting gun. Together, they walked out into the sunlight. A man who looked to be in his 70s was tending to a garden. A young couple was playing cards. A woman was reading by the pool. Bodies of every shape, age, and size were scattered around, all engaged in the simple, mundane acts of a lazy afternoon. It was aggressively, wonderfully normal. Ethan stopped walking, his mouth slightly agape. He had expected to feel like he was on a stage, under 1,000 spotlights. Instead, he felt as if he had finally taken off a heavy, ill-fitting costume he'd been wearing his entire life. He was no longer the skinny, pale guy. He was just a guy, one among many. He turned to John, his eyes shining with a new light. "You were right," he whispered, a sense of awe in his voice. "Nobody is looking." "I know," John said, a proud, mentor-like smile on his face. He watched as Ethan took his first few steps as a free man, his shoulders back, his head held high, walking towards the pool to feel the sun on his skin without a trace of shame. In guiding Ethan out of the shadows, John had finally and completely stepped out of his own. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Pivot Stories.